All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We're just going to give people a minute or two to get online here and watch. And but we are here with Alina from Campus Canines at UBC. So, Alina, I'm just going to uh, let you jump right in and answer my favorite first question, which is tell us how you came to be part of the PADS family.
Yeah, for sure. So it actually started with the idea to start the club. I initially saw in the States, there's some other ADI schools, or sorry, Assistance Dogs International schools throughout North America. And in the States, they started, I think a few years ago, some college initiatives similar to what Campus Canines is like. And I saw on social media these really cool clubs. And then that kind of sparked the idea of me wanting to start something like that at UBC. And then I found pads, and the rest is history.
The rest is history. It did take us a little bit because, of course, COVID decided to come in and make everything a little bit more complicated than it would have been. But we're really excited to have you on board. And I know Fleetwood is there with you somewhere. And so you were the first puppy raiser for Campus Canines, and you're also Campus Canines' first kind of founding president. So do you want to talk just a little? Actually, let me stop for a second and let folks know if you're watching on Facebook or you're watching us on Zoom. Just pop into the comments, either in chat if you're watching on Zoom, and let us know where you're watching from. And if you want to ask questions of Alina, just pop those into the Q&A box on Zoom or into the comment section on Facebook, and we will get to your questions in just a minute here. But how about we talk first about your relationship with Mr. Fleetwood and just kind of what the experience has kind of meant to you to become a puppy raiser. And he has decided that this is his 5 minutes of fame. So he's just going to be up front and center, which is perfectly fine with me. So why don't you talk about what's it been like to be a first-time puppy raiser?
Definitely a roller coaster. He's actually not only the first dog I've ever puppy raised, but the first dog I've ever had. So even growing up, even though I was obsessed with dogs, my family never let me get one. So it was a huge learning curve, to say the least, in every way. But he has also changed my life in the best way possible. Like, even it honestly, and I mean, it's not that I'm old enough to have had kids yet, but it feels like raising a kid. And even though it can be so stressful, my mental health has improved so much from just having him around and, getting to know him and see him grow up to be this goofy but super smart boy.
That's so awesome. Well, we hear a lot from our volunteers that whole raise a puppy, change a life. And I know for me, it's been true that I think they changed my life as much as they changed the life of the people they go to. So thank you for sharing that. So I'm just, for those of you that are just jumping in here, I see our numbers are kind of climbing as we keep talking. We're here with Alina from Campus Canines UBC. I love you have a mirror behind you because we can see Fleetwood in the background. And we're also here with Pads Fleetwood from our Mr. Blake vehicle litter. So Fleetwood is Alina's very first puppy in training that she's raising. And she's also founded Campus Canines UBC, which is a satellite kind of puppy raising volunteer program. So why don't you talk a little bit about that, Alina, and just kind of what the club hopes to accomplish?
For sure, yeah. So actually, in our first year, I want to toot our own horn a little bit. In our first year, we have almost hit 100 members. So we are now at 98 members just in our first year on campus, which is huge. And I never thought we'd get there in our first year. But yeah, essentially what we're hoping to do is, aside from obviously hosting more student puppy raisers and sitters, we're hoping to fundraise for pads, just kind of educate the UBC community in general, community around us about service dogs. And then also a huge thing that we're working on right now is advocating for accessibility on campus. So all of those kind of together is the goals of the club and where we're headed.
That's so fantastic. And I think it's just such a important thing, not just the puppies and helping pets, which we love, which is super exciting, but that accessibility piece as well, and what that looks like. And I know that UBC has been fantastic over the years, kind of working with us as well in terms of developing policy, et cetera. But it's nice when you see that kind of rippling out through the community. And I think the dogs are a very visible kind of example of that. So thank you for doing that. So for those of you joining us, if you have questions for Alina or for myself, you can pop those into the Q&A box if you're watching on Zoom, or if you're watching on Facebook Live, you can pop them into the comment section, and we will try and answer them live here. So tell us a little bit about Fleetwood. What is this guy's personality like? We're getting a little bit of a hint that he's a bit of a fun guy.
Oh yeah,
party boy. Yeah,
such a goofball. Yeah, and he's definitely in full-blown teenage phase right now. Very stubborn, but also super smart. I don't know, he picks up on things so quickly, almost too quickly. I swear he trains me sometimes and I don't realize it. But yes, a very silly boy. He likes to sing to his toys, so you guys might hear that in the background a little bit. When he chews, he sometimes just like sings as he's chewing.
Amazing. It's like, let's just yodel a little bit. So, and he is a yellow Labrador, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. We always have to ask, because our yellow labs and our lab golden crosses are, well, labs of any color and our lab golden crosses often look very similar. So, with that, talk to us about what it's like raising a puppy on campus. Like, what has that been like? And what are some of the challenges, some of the great things?
Definitely at the very beginning, the biggest challenge was having him settle in the big lecture settings. Thankfully, I actually didn't encounter any sort of accessibility issues of any sort. Everybody kind of either knew what a service dog was and that they were kind of allowed in all spaces, or they just didn't say anything. But yeah, definitely the biggest challenge at the beginning was getting a 4-month-old little puppy to be able to sit for an hour and just be quiet and just hang out. But we made it through, and I mean, he's perfect now. He can settle anywhere. So I think that's actually one of the biggest pros to having him on campus. Even though it was a bit of a challenge at first, it really accelerated, I think, that process of him learning how to settle.
Yeah, well, fun fact, I raised my very first my first 2 puppies actually on a university campus. So I feel your pain, but also I agree with you wholeheartedly that, building that ability to just kind of shut off and chill out in any kind of scenario at such an early age is super fantastic down the road for a client that needs to take dog into all sorts of scenarios. So what a great opportunity for Fleetwood. I swear he's looking at us in the mirror. He's just like, what's happening back there? So, oh, yeah, full-blown teenage stage, right? Oh, turkey boy. So yeah, so Fleetwood is showing us an example of what not to do. So Pad's puppies are not allowed on furniture, and the teenage stage is a challenging one. So good job on the management there. And for those of you watching, if you want to chime in with any questions in either the chat, or sorry, the Q&A box on Zoom or the comment section on Facebook, we'd be happy to answer them. Do you want to talk a little bit about the structure of the club? You are not doing this alone. I know you have an amazing executive and team, as well as all those members. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and what their roles are?
For sure, yeah. So we're actually expanding our team because of how much the club has grown. But in this first year, we essentially had our board of directors that consisted of myself, Janessa, who's our VP, Emma, who is our secretary, Maya, who's our treasurer right now. And then we've got a director of membership, Kirsten. She has a pretty big role. She oversees all our 98 club members, as well as all the puppy raisers and sitters, and helps them kind of submit their applications to go through the onboarding process and whatnot. Then we have a director of events, and that's Chris, and he's actually planning our upcoming fundraising event for PADS. I can talk about that a little later. Sure. And then Jacqueline, our director of PR now.
Nice.
So that's our board.
Yeah. Well, and it's something that is part and parcel of running a university club is that roles are going to change as people kind of move through their programs and stuff, but it also is kind of cool because it gives different people the opportunity to grow. So I know that it's been super challenging on the event side because of COVID and everything else, but with restrictions easing up, you have your first event planned. Do you want to talk about that?
We do, yes, it's super exciting. So we've partnered up with, hey buddy, I have my space. I
You
guess
just
not.
kind of have to talk over him.
So we partnered up with the Hollywood Theater, which is a new bar. I think it just opened up this past year or about a year ago in Kits. And we're essentially hosting, it's kind of like a clubbing fundraiser, but we're splitting the event up into two different sections. So all of the proceeds that are raised from ticket sales, first of all, are going to be donated towards helping with the raising and placement of assistance dogs with pads. But essentially the event will be split up into two sections. The first part I'm really excited about. We've got some pads dogs that are going to be coming into the venue, and people will get to come and meet them, learn a little bit about them. Hopefully we'll have some people chatting about kind of what it's like to either train an assistance dog or what it's like to have one if they're a client. And then for the second part of the event, it's going to be hopefully a big party now that we've got COVID restrictions lifted. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. And when is that happening? What's the date?
March 22nd.
Okay. And if people want more info, your Instagram or Facebook, is there info there about ticket sales? Okay. So, and tell us what those links are. So Campus Canines UBC on Facebook and the same on Instagram, correct?
On Instagram.
Perfect. Okay. Well, hang on. I'm just refreshing here because the comment section always does these weird sticky things. So just checking to see if there's any questions. Bear with me. So I think my other question for you is around like, what are your plans for the future for the club? What are you hoping for, and what are the executive working towards right now?
Honestly, I guess just expanding at this point, building up on it. Next year, we're hoping to have beyond just this event. So that'll be kind of an all hands on deck situation as long as COVID restrictions stay lifted and doesn't get worse again. We are hoping to do a few more events, and then honestly just expand with our raisers and sitters. We're hoping to have a nice big group of puppies on campus eventually. I mean, I doubt we'll get to like 20 next year, but down the road, that's probably the goal.
Yeah. Well, and so Campus Canines is becoming its own cohort. And so just speaking for PADS is one of the reasons we're really excited about this is it's an opportunity to kind of look at what is a volunteer run kind of puppy program kind of model or kind of volunteer. Some of the schools in the States do puppy raising clubs in kind of remote regions. And so for it to make sense for us in terms of doing that, it requires a little bit of a threshold in terms of like having enough puppies kind of in a region or an area. And what we've been able to do through the Campus Canines program is kind of practice a little bit. What does that look like? But with the lovely safety net in the Lower Mainland of the fact that regionally you're quite close, you're within, you're right within kind of our West Coast region. But it's allowing us to kind of say, okay, what does a good structure look like? And, what is that kind of momentum that's needed in order for a group to be successful and to kind of self-manage and lead and be supported by staff that, support largely remotely, but then kind of come in periodically to work hands-on with the volunteers. So it's definitely been a win-win for PADS as well. And Alina and her team have been amazing at kind of helping us as well kind of work through those challenges and answering questions, like even things about like, how do we fundraise and how do we sort that out financially? Like, does the club have a bank account or does it go through PADS? And there's all these kinds of questions that have to kind of get sorted out as we kind of work through this process. But hopefully the learning with this fantastic collaborative group allows us to do that. So we have a question from Gwyneth that is asking, do you ever have problems taking puppy into places where dogs are not usually allowed?
Definitely. I've had some problems with that, I'd say within the city. On campus, luckily, I haven't had any issues with that at all. Yeah, either I think people either know about the service dogs or just haven't really said anything about it. But yeah, thankfully on UBC campus, there haven't been issues. I'd say actually the most common location that I've had issues with is in Ubers or taxis. So not necessarily actually buildings, but Uber drivers, just not necessarily. But I mean, it's never really been terrible. It's more of just I let them know kind of what the policy is. Sometimes I even offer to show my ID card. So it's never been super bad, but yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's true of most of our puppy raisers, that, occasionally we encounter folks that aren't educated about assistance dog law, and they don't realize the puppies have public access rights as well. So Joanna's asking about puppy swaps. And I think that's one of the neat and slightly different things about the UBC campus is we've actually approved a bunch of sitters within their community, because the very nature of being a university student means that occasionally you have exams or labs. So it's nice to have those folks right on campus to kind of help support the process. So do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because it is structured a little bit differently than our typical kind of volunteer community is structured, just in the proximity that you have to the other club members.
For sure, yeah. So we definitely get a lot more, as Tara mentioned, kind of like during the day sitting situations going on, where it's like if you have a lab or, as Tara mentioned, like an exam, you just kind of pass the puppy off to a sitter for 4 hours a day or something like that. And we've actually got a couple sitting arrangements that it's like on a schedule. It's like every Tuesday and Thursday they take one of the raisers' puppies for like 4 hours that day. And it's really nice having kind of that cohort on campus, because the same sitters get to know the puppy as it grows up, and then it's not like a different sitter every single time. And it's super accessible. Like we don't have to kind of drive out to get to a sitter. Everyone's just on campus within walking distance of each other. It's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a neat setup, just having that little mini community there. So Mark is asking, he said he tuned in late, but is this your first puppy? And how many dogs are in your group right now? So yeah, there's a few new people on. So if you want to cover that again, that'd be great.
For sure, yeah. So yeah, Fleetwood is my first puppy that I'm raising, hopefully more down the road. And at Campus Canines right now, we have 4 puppies in total. So we've got Fleetwood, who was the first, and then we have Loki and Marvel from, are they the Marvel litter or what?
Avengers.
Avengers litter.
Yeah.
Yes. And then Myrtle as well, who I believe will be finishing up as a puppy in training soon.
She was from our ghost litter, I believe. So yeah, so she's getting close to turning age. And so with that, our goal kind of for the first year originally was to do 6 puppies total. And so that's something that we're kind of working towards. And then over time, as the club grows and kind of their structure gets stabilized and everything else, we can look at adding more puppies as time goes on. We've been really fortunate, and just want to kind of do a shout out to our a couple of our friends through fellow ADI schools, Lauren, who's with Southeastern Guide Dogs, and oh my goodness, I should have done this in advance. I totally am just blanking. The other one is ICANN at Indiana University. Their clubs have been really fantastic about kind of sharing information with us about what worked for them. And those clubs some of those clubs are huge. So Lauren was involved with Susquehanna Service Dogs in their university program, and now has kind of gone into a career in the assistance dog industry. But was wonderful about kind of sharing some information with us about how to approach things and set folks up for success. And some of those clubs are massive, but I am as blown away as Alina is that we are now at almost 100 members at Campus Canines. So it's exciting for us as an organization. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to ask folks, you have one more chance here to ask any questions if you want to throw them into the Q&A on Zoom or into the comment section on Facebook Live, and we'll try and answer them here. But any last thoughts, Alina? Anything you want to share?
I guess actually you did bring up something that I figure we might as well share with people. So in terms of expanding with our Raisers on campus and how we're trying to also advocate for accessibility, one of our biggest projects right now to kind of help get more students involved is trying to get one of the UBC residences to allow even just like a section for student puppy raisers. And we're hoping even if it takes a couple of years for us to get there, I think that would help us really grow the club in terms of students that are able to puppy raise.
Yeah, I remember at one of the other universities in the States, they had one of their residents wound up getting called the dog house because it was basically the residents that allowed puppy raisers to live on campus in student housing. So yes, that is definitely something that is in hopefully in the works down the road. And we've been really grateful for the folks at UBC that have kind of reached out to us and connected. So hopefully down the road that's going to be a possibility. And I think right now having the puppies on campus is just one step in the right direction of people kind of getting to know them and understanding the important role they're going to play down the road. So one last kind of shout out just about your event that is coming up. If you want to learn more about Campus Canines or you want to follow their adventures, they're on social media on Instagram and Facebook at Campus Canines UBC. And you can kind of follow along there. They've got some great content, but they've also got an event coming up. So if you want to participate, or even if you are a UBC student watching this and you want to get involved with Campus Canines, you can reach out to them over those channels. So thank you so much, Helena, for joining us, and Fleetwood, who now has collapsed, it looks like. Seeing the tiny version of him in the mirror. He's like, now it's nap time in the sun. So, well, thank you so much for being here today. And hopefully we will see you soon, but we'll see you at the event for sure. And thanks for coming online today. Take care.
Thank you so much, Tara. Bye.
All right. Bye, Alina.